something to work with to do a better job.
What specifically were your jobs?
Crew was,
So was your main complaint?
what we had to work with. Why, I think we done a super job.
Right.
Mr. Hoffner is here. Miss Feeney.
Minor modifications. Park is a very well-maintained and a good-looking mobile home park. Korean nationals would think nothing of, and it's part of their culture. They can sit very easy and rub a floor, whereas those of us in this nation are accustomed to the technology of cleaning. And as this lady mentioned, that there were many times they had only one vacuum cleaner for the entire airport. If indeed that was true, I think that is absolutely almost disastrous.
On an already inadequate system. And many of our
to you, the members of the, they provided our entertainment this afternoon. Responsible for getting the facilities together that, despite his hectic schedule, mourn with Senator Cummings' family. He currently serves as the chairman of the Oklahoma Chamber of Commerce Water Development Council.
I feel this state has an obligation to its citizens, and because they just might happen to live in a town or a water district, doesn't mean that the state doesn't have an interest in providing them water for the future.
You would certainly have higher taxes, and everybody that's got a sewage treatment problem or water running they don't like or that, they can come here and get the legislature to appropriate money and set up any kind of a way to pay it back, and there's no limit to it.
What is 12 feet long, weighs 432 pounds, and scoots along at more than 250 miles per hour? It's called an acrojet. Edmond pilot Bob Bishop and his wife and friends built the tiny jet 6 years ago. Bishop has been thrilling airshow audiences ever since then with high-performance aerobatics in the world's smallest jet. The acrojet looks more like a toy than a flying machine. In fact, Bishop is constantly asked, "Does it really fly?" He answered that question at 21 air shows last year.
It's probably the most fun I've ever had flying an airplane. It's sort of like being up there with nothing around you but yourself doing high-performance aerobatics, and I think that's what man has always been trying to do when you're trying to think about flight. It's nice to be able to feel like it's just you up there by yourself.
Is there a certain something that you feel when you do a show as compared to, say, just out here practicing?
I'm an entertainer. I don't see myself as being just a pilot. The idea for me is to try and entertain the folks and to make them go home and they really feel like they've seen something besides just an airplane doing loops and rolls.
Bishop spends a lot of his time on the road, or more precisely, in the air. It's not often he gets to perform in his own backyard. He's grateful for the chance to perform at the Kidney Air Show in Yukon this weekend. Those who see him will agree that, in this case, smaller is better. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Yukon.
Occurrences have been documented. Of course, tonight, Halloween, people going out for Halloween, but we would urge caution and that.
Appreciate your dad's commentary on that. Should have control or even influence in this office. It doesn't with me here. But, ever since the Tylenol scare, Kevin, I've been worried about the trick-or-treating and Halloween treats. We've had problems before without this kind of an incentive, and we've had a lot of copycat activity. And I decided that we needed some vehicle where if there's we do find some poison candy or something, we can identify it immediately and hopefully stop it before anybody consumes it. I anticipate it, but I sure hope I'm wrong. I've seen every time we have something like this, we always have copycats, and we're prepared for it, but I hope the evening goes very quietly and we have no calls at all.
It's been nearly a year since most of the track abandoned by the Rock Island Railroad has seen any traffic. Ceremonies are scheduled in El Reno on Monday to reopen some of the lines, this time under the management of the MKT Railroad, or Katy. The new Katy lines will run from El Reno to Oklahoma City and from Wichita, Kansas to Dallas, Texas. The lines have been under the care of the state until new companies can lease them and begin providing rail service once again. But the ceremony doesn't mean rail service will begin immediately.
A matter of going over the track and being sure that it is in a good condition. Where it's been lying dormant like that, it's a safety precaution as far as the railroad industry is concerned, to be sure that we do have a safe operation and can handle the traffic as it is generated up.
Service may begin to some parts of the line early next week. The old Rock Island lines add up to about 900 miles of new track for Katy, increasing their network by about a third. In return, farms and industries along the lines that lost rail service when Rock Island went under can begin shipping by train again instead of using more costly substitutes. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
Gasoline prices are on their way up again, but this time not because of fuel shortages. The price hike is because of new rules limiting the amount of lead in gasoline. Since less lead will be in the gas, more octane will be added as a replacement, and consumers will pay a half a cent a gallon more for the octane. On a positive note, lower lead levels means cleaner air and water for Oklahoma City.
It does have a positive outlook for the area, and that it will further reduce the ambient air levels of lead, and has a further implication in that it will reduce the lead found in runoff surface waters, which of course could have some impact on some of our reservoirs here in the nearby area. This obviously would have implications as far as drinking water is concerned.
Each year, less lead will be used in gasoline until the year 1990, at which time the EPA will decide if more laws concerning lead in gasoline should be proposed. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
For the last 2 years, the Army Corps of Engineers has been building the water gates and the mechanisms for the Arcadia Dam. Work is already underway to clear the brush and trees from the lake area. But today, Army Corps specialists were inspecting the concrete work and the mechanics before the actual dam construction can begin. When the whole project is completed, the concrete conduits and the earthen walls will control the water in a lake nearly 2,000 acres in size. It will supply water to the Edmond area. All that is supposed to happen by mid-1987, but the project is a little ahead of schedule.
We're slightly ahead of schedule on the outlet works. Their schedule will be complete in January of next year, and we're essentially complete right now. The actual construction of the dam has begun. They've stripped the areas and they're excavating the approach channel now and beginning to gear up for the large dirt work.
There are too many factors involved to be able to predict if the project will stay ahead of schedule. But if no major flaws are found in the inspection, and if weather and funding hold course, Arcadia Lake should be operational in about 5 years. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the Arcadia Dam site.
The cheers were for Oklahoma's first two-term governor. George Nye had been the predicted winner, but last night as he thanked his supporters, his victory was official. Nye led in all of Oklahoma's 77 counties, beating his opponent by more than 60%. Nye requested that history remember him for his service in office, not his long tenure in office.
Adlai Stevenson said, winning the election is not nearly so important as governing the state. And while I am excited, jubilant, overwhelmed, gratified, appreciative, it's the future of Oklahoma, not the past of this election. And I ask you tonight to join with me in a positive approach, that we throw away the negative, that we eliminate it, and that we look only forward to the future.
The jubilance at Nye's victory party was countered by the disappointed supporters at Tom Daxon's watch party. For this group, it was a night of bitter disappointment. With just over 30% of the vote, Daxon conceded defeat. The vote tallies brought to an abrupt halt his plans for the governor's office. But Daxon's outlook was not as bleak as the election results. He told supporters that next time it would be different.
We may not have gotten the most votes in this particular election, but I think one thing is clear. This campaign has spawned a reform movement in Oklahoma which is going to be heard from for a long time to come.
The Democratic sweep prevailed in the secondary offices. Lieutenant Governor Spencer Bernard was reelected for a second term. Bernard beat Republican Norman Lamb by almost 65%.
And I tell you, it's a real rewarding feeling. And one of the reasons it is, because I've worked with such a great leader and such a great guy as Governor Nye. I appreciate him from the bottom of my heart, and I'm looking forward to another 4 years of that association being a teammate with him. That's my pledge to you, to be a teammate with the governor for the betterment of Oklahoma. I appreciate all of you a lot. Thank you.
Mickey Edwards was the lone Republican winning a congressional seat. Voters elected Democrat Jim Jones by a slight margin over Dick Freeman in the 1st District. In the 2nd District, Mike Saynar won, and Glenn English retained his seat in the 6th District. There were plenty of gloomy faces at the Howard Rutledge headquarters. Rutledge was defeated by Democrat incumbent Dave McCurdy in the 4th Congressional District. Bob Macy was reelected as Oklahoma County District Attorney, but this race wasn't a piece of cake. Republican Wayne Wells gave Macy a tough fight. For last night's winners, the party is over, and the work has just begun. Debbie Mash, Action 4.
I'm not that long-winded. It's too late to go.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
This Oklahoma City home is being rehabilitated. Loan money is available through a block grant from the city to fix homes in desperate need of work. The loans go as high as $9,000, and best of all, the money is interest-free. You must have a low income, be disabled, or a senior citizen to qualify. Certain neighborhoods have priority for the loans. They are Central City, Gatewood, Classen Tenpin, Metro Willard, Riverside, Dimensions, portions of Northeast and South Oklahoma City, Capitol Hill, Wheeler-Scheidler, Harrison Walnut, and the Garden community. City officials have high hopes for the program.
Okay, the city hopes to accomplish an increase in standard housing. That is by bringing these properties up to a level where they can be maintained by the owners. So we are preserving housing. But these are homes that are, they're marginal. If they're left at their present situation, they are going to deteriorate further and would become a burden to the neighborhood.
For senior citizens who receive a loan, if they live in the rehabilitated house for 5 years, they don't have to pay back the loan. For other homeowners, they won't have to repay the loan until they decide to sell the house. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
This is the L.E. Rader Diagnostic Center in Sand Springs. The intensive treatment center here houses some of the welfare department's toughest teenagers. The center's solitary confinement cells are frequently used to confine unruly students. Welfare department officials today admitted that some students have been kept in solitary confinement here for an absolute maximum of 5 days. Investigators who've recently visited the institution say some students' stays have been a lot longer.
Department's own records, which they have provided us, indicate that solitary has been used for 5, 15, and 20 days this year. And so their statements to that effect are just not borne out by their own documents.
Novick has the figures to back up his claim. The Welfare Department's detention logs show that a student named Sheila was placed in solitary confinement at Sand Springs March 31st of this year. She was released 20 days later. Those same records also show that Sheila was put back in solitary confinement August 23rd. That time she was locked up for 15 days. The logs reveal numerous other apparent violations of Welfare Department policies. Up until now, the Welfare Department has policed itself. Now it has a federal court watching over its shoulder to make sure the guidelines are followed. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
This is Mickey Kalman. I didn't catch your name. Mike Reynolds. You
Free help and money have arrived at the rescue mission to keep some 60 women and their children off the streets this winter. The mission was in danger of being closed after a faulty heating system was detected. But now, with the help of concerned residents and a friendly plumber, the mission can continue their badly needed service. Action 4 became aware of the problem last Friday. Since our initial report, the mission has received over $3,000, and today, a special volunteer.
I had seen a story on the news about it, and I'm a small company. I'm in business for myself, just a two-man company, and I seen the story and thought I'd come down and try and help them out.
No, how many heaters are going to be going in there? What I need to do is call that guy who put in all the furniture.
I don't know. I just, like everybody else, you sit back all the time and watch stories on TV and say, boy, I wish there was something I could do to help them people. So I figured, well, it's time to do it. So, more people would help other people, like this. You wouldn't have some of the problems we have right now, I think.
So for these women, the thought of spending this winter in the streets looking for a home is no longer a reality. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
For a long time, the oil industry kept Oklahoma prosperous, while much of the country suffered. But in recent months, the energy industry has fallen off, and so has Oklahoma's economy. The first sign was long lines of customers waiting to get their money out of the failed Penn Square Bank last July. Now there's more bad news. State sales tax collections fell 9% last month. If that trend holds up for an entire year, sales tax collections would drop $80 million. One reason for the smaller collection is rising unemployment. Oklahoma's unemployment rate is 5.8%. Now that's well below the national average of 10.4%, but it's more than 2 points higher than the average in Oklahoma a year ago. The lower sales tax collection hits the Oklahoma Welfare Department most directly. All of the sales tax money goes to the department. It's going to be up to the governor, the legislature, and the department to figure out what to do. Possibilities are a funds transfer or cutting back on welfare programs. Whatever the decision, an economic reality has been brought home to Oklahoma.
The reality is that the recession has come to Oklahoma. Sales tax is a very obvious barometer of business on a day-to-day basis.
The oil derricks on the grounds of the state capitol have symbolized Oklahoma's robust economy. But if things don't improve, they may come to symbolize a more prosperous past. Bill Ross, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Free from coercion. Make quite sure he stays here.
Cable TV. It's become a hot item in Oklahoma City lately. People who have it can't live without it, and the people who don't have it want it. But lately, a problem has come up with the installation of cable. And today, there were some mad folks at City Hall talking about it.
In a little while, the doorbell rang, and here was a 6'3" policeman and a paddy wagon. And I said, "Are you trying to intimidate me and force your way through my backyard?" And the policeman said, "Well, I don't know much more about this than you do." He said, "They say they have a right, an easement through here, and if they do, they have to go through it." And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it either." But I said, "I will not give permission to take my fence down."
This lady is describing what happened when a construction company dug up her yard to run cable television wiring. This complaint was commonplace at today's meeting. The meeting was called by Ward 8 Councilman Bob Frank. Frank has been receiving calls this week from people in the northwest section of the city. They've been complaining that their yards and property are being destroyed by construction workers who are laying lines for Cox Cable. The cable company acknowledges the problem and this afternoon pledged to do something about it.
If the crews are not responsive to the citizenry out there, that's a problem that we really want to deal with, because obviously we're investing about $28,000 a mile to construct that system. And it doesn't exactly make me happy to find out that although we put the cable in, we cannot attract subscribers because they're all mad at us.
As a precautionary measure, Frank has set up a cable committee to deal with similar problems in the future. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 at City Hall.
Check that 34-way connector. See if that 34-way connector is completely plugged up.
Hopefully when the demand is there, we'll have them, by building 2 car lines, the A and the X car line, why, our chances are better than most.
Everyone here hates what's taken place, but our hearts and our sympathies go out to both families. I think most of us see both sides of the question.
Most of the kids they're a little upset, and some of the kids have mixed feelings because a lot of them liked Mr. Poole, and a lot of them thought he was a real hard teacher, and a lot of the kids liked Chris Smith, so they're really just kind of mixed.
An Oklahoma City viewer writes in and says, "In my will there is a provision for my grandchildren to share in my estate, but my son has married a woman with 4 small children. Now, since they are all stepchildren, will they automatically share in my estate with my son's own natural child? We are opposed to the marriage and feel that only his natural child should share." Well, only spouses and bloodline relations may share in a person's estate under the circumstances that you've described. So unless your son adopts his wife's children, or unless you make a specific gift to them in your will, then they will have no claim to your property. If he does adopt them, then they will share equally with your son's own child unless you specifically exclude them under the terms of your will. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. A viewer writes in and says, "I've lost my driver's license because of all of my speeding tickets. Is there any way I can get a permit to drive to work?" Well, you can file a hardship petition in the District Court of Oklahoma County or the county in which you reside. There will be a hearing where you can testify about your need to drive and your working hours. Normally, a limited permit is then granted. You will most likely need an attorney to represent you in this matter, as it involves the drafting of legal pleadings and an actual court appearance. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs. A viewer writes in and says, "In my divorce decree, it is specified that my ex-husband was responsible for paying my house payments, taxes, and insurance. He is not paying these, and now the mortgage company is threatening foreclosure. Can the mortgage company take my home away from me?" Well, under the circumstances that you have described, they can. The mortgage company was not a party to your divorce action or the decree of divorce setting out your ex-husband's obligations. Therefore, although his failure to make mortgage payments, taxes, and insurance may entitle you to sue him, it won't affect your contractual obligation with the company holding the mortgage on your home. The same situation applies to all jointly acquired debts of the marriage. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
With additional hours past that. There are 500 this afternoon at approximately 1:30 from Mr. Montgomery. Exactly happened. There were only teachers there from Central.
Due to the hostility and the fact that my daughter...
Okay, what you need to do is you need to have a notebook. That's the best way you can keep track. Scale it down. Can you scale it down? How much will it cost? Researching, collecting information, and saying it is.
We can't. Each district would just have to assess its own situation and take that dollar amount off their budget and make the cutbacks according to their priorities of that district. So it's very hard to, say what effect it would have on each district.
Thousands of Oklahomans are here at the Myriad tonight to celebrate together the state's 75th birthday. Everyone is in good spirits. You can tell because no one seemed to mind the long lines. Instead, they took it as an opportunity to meet fellow Oklahomans. Funny enough, the traditional garb of cowboy hats and jeans can't be found tonight. Instead, there's suits and evening dresses. But that's to be expected because tonight's show is one spectacular salute. It kicked off with a song showing Oklahomans' personal pride. and went on to show the state's national pride. Tonight, dignitaries of the state can be found on the stage and in the audience. All the top names are here, be it politicians, actors, or musicians.
We had about 7 apartments in the motel itself, 2 of those being occupied, 5 of them were apparently just storage at this point, but lost to 7 of those apartments, which comes to something like $30,000 loss. 2 of the residence fires were in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000 loss. So out of those fires that we had last night, we're looking at something over $100,000 fire loss that are fires of suspicious nature.
Why so much arson last night?